Hey everyone, welcome back to the Manufacturing Stream podcast. I am your host this week, Eric Whitley, Director of Manufacturing Solutions here at L2L. Looking forward to the discussion today because we are going to talk a little downtime. Everybody's dealing with it. It's always the nemesis. I always say downtime is the queen bee of any plant. Everything gathers around downtime. All the functions, all the processes, all of that are how do we eliminate downtime with inside the plants. And I have with me today from one of our longtime clients here at L2L, ChampionX, and actually out of the Quartzstein facility, I think in West Valley, Utah. Is that where you're at, Joel?
Yeah, we're in West Valley.
Yeah, good. So I have Joel Cooke with me. He's the manager of maintenance and automation. Is that correct, Joel?
Yes.
Yeah. And he's been using L2L for quite a long time, has been in the business for quite a long time. ChampionX is in the oil business. I've worked at their facilities in Canada and Oklahoma and here in Utah, and they just do everything around how to try to get that precious oil out of the ground and help do that and the sensors for that. And that's what you guys do. So, Joel, thanks for joining me on the podcast today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, you bet. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in the business and what are you doing now?
Oh man, longer than I want to admit. So I've been with Quartzstein for almost 25 years. It'll be 25 years in May. Started out in the calibration lab and in the maintenance department, and then worked all the way through the whole all of the levels of maintenance up to the management position.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, long time. So
Every maintenance manager has their philosophy about how they approach maintenance, if you will. Tell us a little bit about your thought process around.
So a lot of the time, especially 10, 15 years ago, it was just keep all the balls in the air, right? Try to juggle everything. We're a growing piece of ChampionX, and we've scaled the maintenance team with that. So we're in a lot better position now than we were before, having staffed to keep everything up and running. Historically, it was just, whoever was crying the loudest or whoever had the biggest production impact to the bottom line is who got the attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, growing through the different ways that we've done maintenance here and gotten to the point where we're able to actually look at cost analysis for different areas and things like that. So it's a lot different now than it was before, the way that we have that philosophy. Right now we're in full swing with the total productive maintenance and working as a team with everybody now, instead of it being maintenance against engineering or maintenance against operations. Everybody's together trying to keep everything going all the time now. So, and L2L has helped that immensely with the way that it's easy to use and its visibility to everybody. The previous systems that we had didn't really allow anybody but the maintenance team to see what was happening. So yeah,
Right.
it's always changing, ever changing. So being a continuous improvement company, any kind of improvement helps for sure.
Yeah, I've always said that the one thing that I think companies get wrong is that when they say maintenance, right, they either refer to the group of guys or people,
Right.
or they refer to the location in the shop where everybody stores their toolbox. That's what they talk about when they say
Right.
maintenance.
Yeah.
But in reality, maintenance is the system or the processes that you choose and how you choose to take care of your equipment, right? And matter of fact, I think I have it on my board here. I've always said, you're going to have downtime. You just have to choose, is it going to be you that chooses? Or is it going to be the machine that chooses the downtime, right?
Right.
That's kind of really who, proactive or reactive. You get to decide, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
so tell us about, you talked about 15 years ago. Tell us a little about that thought process of going from that reactive mode and getting more predictive, more proactive there.
Well, it coincided with the whole continuous improvement or lean manufacturing process that we implemented. When I started with Quartzstein, we weren't a lean company. We just were, an ISO certified company. So we had great procedures, but there wasn't really a method to it. I mean, it was incredibly batch processed and, operator dependent. There were a lot of things that were issues with it. So when we started to adopt, lean manufacturing, like my boss at the time, he approached me and said, hey, there's a lot of this stuff that needs to carry over into maintenance. And, wholeheartedly I agree, but there's definitely a little bit different system for maintenance as opposed to manufacturing. I mean, some of the base principles work for maintenance, but you've got to step into more of a not manufacturing mindset and a operational availability mindset, right? I mean, I don't have a sales quota to meet, but I have an uptime quota to meet. So it's just a
Right.
little bit different way to think about it.
Right. There's a lot of, I mean, if you look at lean manufacturing, right, we talk about removal of waste. There's a lot of waste in the maintenance process itself,
Well, there is for
right?
sure. Yeah.
From the time that a machine goes down, we start doing things that could easily fall into the wasted time in motion, all of that stuff, too much material, whatever
Right.
material issue, all of that stuff, quality of work, all of that falls into the elimination of waste.
Hmm.
The better we get at that, the quicker we can get the machine back up and running, right?
For sure.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about how's been the impact your maintenance folks as you begin to move from this firefighting mode into a more proactive, more methodical approach to maintenance?
So I have had absolutely zero resistance from any of the technicians at all whatsoever to adopt this new thing, right?
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time with, the L2L sales team, and I've looked at demos for the software, year over year over year, and it took me quite a while to get approval for it at Quartzstein. And once we got to that point, we were able to, pull the team together and then just show them the benefit of it and show them how much waste it would eliminate from their day-to-day process. And I mean, since then, they've just absolutely jumped into it. Like, I mean, a lot of maintenance teams do a toolbox meeting or a start meeting, something like that. We do that as well, and we actually have like an L2L sharing session in that meeting where somebody says something new that they've learned about it every single day. So we talk about things that we need to add to it or ways to utilize it a little bit differently so that it helps everybody and not just us.
What are some of the ways, let me, if I can kind of put you on the spot a little bit, give me an example of some of the ways you guys have learned how to use it kind of uniquely.
Previously, we didn't really have a documented process for bringing a new machine into the facility, right? So an engineer might find something that's going to help his process, and kind of in a vacuum, all of a sudden it just shows up, right? So, but there were several people that were involved with it. Purchasing knew about it, like some of the directors knew about it. And maintenance is always the last to know, but the ones that need to know first, kind of thing. So we have a process of that now where we utilize the work order system through there that automatically kicks out all of the dispatches, so that when a machine shows up, infrastructure's here, procedures are in place, maintenance manuals are in place, PMs are already created, like everything is ready to go. So day one, as soon as it turns on, there isn't that scramble to try to get everything up and running. So, and then I'm developed like an automation team at Quartzsite as well. That's just the maintenance team and me doing some of the custom design build work for equipment that we can't just buy. And I track the automation process through there as well, right? Because eventually we're going to have to support that product as well. So I might as well just create the bill of materials through L2L while I'm creating the machine, right? It gives me a better way to keep track of the things that I did for notes and procedures, set up stuff that's going to carry forward for everybody to use in the future. So that's just a couple of the ways that, we're using things that are kind of out of the ordinary. Currently looking at doing a line shift work order as well, because we do shift production lines fairly frequently, and just create a template for that so that when a supervisor says, hey, I don't like the way my area is laid out, it's going to work better if it goes through this way. Kicking all of the communication off with that and kicking everybody's dispatches out, so everybody's in the loop right off the bat. It doesn't have to be the catch up after the fact.
So that is the beauty of going from reactive to a proactive, is that what you do is that you actually create time to do those things that are right.
Right.
Right. You actually have, instead of firefighting all the time, you free up resources so that you can have a line movement methodical process, right?
Right.
How are you going to go out and move this line? And, you have a supervisor that knows that that could actually happen, a production supervisor that knows that that could actually happen because you have a process. Then they start thinking, how do I make my line better because I know I can get this done, right?
Right.
And so to have a maintenance department that supports that and has a process for that, that's amazing. That's really, really cool.
Right. And, we're the ones that develop that process, so it's better customer service. They're our customers at the end of the day, and they appreciate when we give improvements for them. And so currently right now, I think I mentioned to you the other day when we were prepping for this that we were just going to start using the QR codes and the scanning tools and things like that. So I've launched that in 2 departments so far, and the department supervisors are absolutely enamored with that. It just,
Really?
I mean, it only saved them a few clicks, right? But a few clicks to them when they're doing it day in and day out, day in and day out, they really appreciate that time
Yeah.
savings.
Yeah.
So,
And if they know where they can go get to that truth, where they can go get to that information quickly, right?
right.
And just see what's going on with their equipment that's in their area. And that's the other thing too, right? Is that it becomes, because they can do it as well as the maintenance, and so you have people in the same system, you actually drive a sense of ownership that it is their equipment
Right.
and not necessarily maintenance's equipment, right? I'm not just walking in and pushing a button and hope it runs.
Right. Right.
I'm part of the process, right?
Yeah. So during our implementation, that was one of the big hurdles for me, was to get everybody to realize that, like, hey, we didn't bring this in for maintenance. We brought this in for the enterprise. So maintenance pushed for it and advocated for it forever. But it's a great system for us, but it's even better for the other folks that can interact
Yeah.
with it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. They want to be able to see, well, they want to see what's going on, right? Everybody loves information, and we know that we can just go click a few buttons and get the information that we want. So you got to
right.
have those systems in place in order to do that, right? How do you guys do when it comes to like your PMs and stuff? Are your guys helping you get those better? Are they, how are you using the system to do that as well?
They are. So, like, all of my technicians are actually authors for documents. And I mean, we go through and once a month or so do like a refresher training just so that we can stick with our standards for how to make documents. With part of that, we have an approval process for it, so they're not just spraying stuff out that isn't approved, right? I mean, we still need to have my approval, engineering approval, operations people approval, stuff like that. So, but it's an awesome way for all ideas to come flowing in. So,
Yeah.
yeah, they're using it quite frequently. So, and that's one of the things that comes up in that toolbox meeting that we have every day. Like, hey, there's a new document coming out for a specific PM. There's a better way to do this, or I've moved the location of some of the parts, or something like that. So it's fostered a lot of extra communication within the team, and then also outside of the team as well. We have a team member and a maintenance team member will interact with an operator or supervisor, and they'll make a suggestion that's like, oh man, that's a great idea. So
Right.
right then and there in their area, they're on their tablet, they'll just pull up a document template and start making some edits to it. And our customers, our operators, like, wow, you guys can just do that on a whim. And it's like, absolutely right. I mean, that's the whole continuous improvement mindset. It's made everybody work together more so than we've ever been before. So,
Yeah, nothing more frustrating to a maintenance guy than to be handed a piece of paper of tasks to go do.
mm-hmm.
And 3/4 of them are probably but the other quarter of them is an NA because they don't even apply anymore. Or I
Right.
can't do that anymore, right? Or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So frustrating for them guys. And so it kind of drives that ownership for them to be able to go make those changes and then see that kind of come to fruition within the next couple of days after they submit that, right?
It does, for sure. So, and then one of the first things that we did was create an L2L admin dispatch type that comes to the admins that are driving the software. So if one of the guys sees an issue in the system, even something as simple as a typo, something like that, they throw a dispatch in. So the system is constantly keeping itself up to date with the admin dispatches and the documentation process that we've got. So
Yeah, so if they put in changes, they can go see where the change is actually in the process because it's
yeah,
in the dispatch.
it is. Yep,
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
awesome.
Yep.
And the
So,
admin gets notifications and they know it's in there. And
yeah.
they
Yep.
can talk about it in their morning meetings if they want to and all that stuff. Yeah, that's awesome.
So
That's
yeah.
awesome. Cool. How's your spare parts process working? Are you guys using it for spare parts with inside of this?
So we are loading things into it right now. Spares has been one of the things that is kind of weird for us. So our maintenance team supports probably 80 or 90 different brands of equipment, and we've got parts pieces for all of that stuff. And then we have internal components as well. So some of our internals are already in a system that we use. They're already in our ERP. So there's a few of those that we have to make fake parts for in L2L, just so that we've got some way to log them onto dispatches, because we are currently not integrated with our ERP. There's a shared ERP for all of ChampionX, and there's a numbering and naming scheme that's different between some of the plants. So it's very difficult to get everybody to be able to do that piece of it. So
Yeah, that usually happens when you acquire businesses, right? That's
it is,
exactly what
yeah.
it is.
So yeah, and then we're actually, I mean, we've moved from a different CMMS system. The parts functionality in it was absolutely terrible. It was horrendous. So we never used that. We literally just have an Excel spreadsheet. So, and I mean, that's one of the things that comes through on those L2L admin dispatches right now. You know, a tech will get something and be like, hey, there's not something missing off of this bill of materials, but it's in this other list. So we'll get it added in that way as well.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So let's talk a little bit. Let's talk a little more theory and stuff like that. I want to get your thought processes on downtime in and of itself. When you think of downtime, what comes to mind when you think of downtime? What are you guys seeing? What is your industry seeing when it comes to downtime with inside of that?
So, I mean, we're lean, right? So we have work cells. So downtime in a specific work cell, we have a couple different ways to look at it, right? I mean, we're looking at like catastrophic, the whole line is down. Then we're also looking at stuff as in there's an impact to capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so there's the two ways that we look at there, and then there's other stuff inside there that's all Kaizen stuff or things that don't really have any kind of an impact, and then also like new applications that roll into certain areas. So obviously, like priority wise, if you've got an entire production line down, then it's kind of an all hands on deck thing. And if it's something that's, you know, an impact, we have to check what kind of capacity impact it is. And that's where the maintenance team would actually work with either the operators or the supervisors in the department. Criticality of machines, obviously, like we've captured a lot of that with the implementation of L2L, but it's few and far between to get an agreement between a department and the maintenance team, or between even the directors and a department and the maintenance team on how critical something is, right? So if there's a workaround, and we're pretty redundant on everything, so there's a lot of places that we have workarounds. So we have prioritized stuff, you know, high, medium, low in the areas that impact. We just go for the biggest bang for the buck, try to get that low hanging fruit to keep everybody happy all the time. But staff's kind of the name of the game with that. If you're staffed, you're able to, you know, keep everybody
Right.
happy and keep the all the lines at capacity and all that. That's one of the things that I saw with L2L as a tool for me, right, as a manager, to be able to push this to the directors, you know, hey, I'm not able to keep everybody at capacity with my current staff, and here is all of the documentation that goes with it. Here are all
Mm.
of the stats. And previously we couldn't do that. That was just kind of ad hoc. So it was hard to convince people to give resources or to update machines, right, to spend more on spare parts on one thing and then another, do overhauls on a different time frame. So all of that data is there now. So
For years and years and years in the maintenance industry, we've been fighting the lack of talent, right? And I don't mean talent as in people not knowing things. I mean just the lack of people who know things, right?
correct.
How are you standing with that? Are you having an impact there?
Oh,
Or?
hiring is an absolute nightmare, right? Trying to find people that want to do this anymore. So, and I run into a lot of stuff with people that apply that think maintenance is like a custodial job.
Right,
And they'll show up and just have, eyes as big as saucer plates going, oh my God, I had no idea
right.
I would be working on a high speed pick and place machine. So, or, the next day into a CNC mill or a lathe or something like that. They had no clue that it was going to be that technical.
So what kind of forward thought processes are you guys using to try to find those people? Or
I've actually reached out to all of the technical schools in Salt Lake and actually in Tooele as well. So there are some good schools that have pretty good programs for industrial maintenance. It is really there to prepare somebody for not really an entry level, but I'm comparing them to somebody that has about a year worth of
yeah,
experience.
yeah,
So
yeah.
all of the people that I've talked to that run those programs are excellent people. Yeah, if there are other maintenance managers that are looking for folks, just reach out to some of the technical colleges.
Yeah.
And yeah, they actually have employment services as part of their schooling. And it was really easy to get hooked up with those folks. So,
What about from a downtime standpoint? What are you seeing from an operator level? Is the lack of ability to find operators, to find talented operators, to have operators that have tenure, is that leading to downtime as well?
Not really. So the main thing that I see for us for downtime is the niche that we're in, right?
Mm,
There's not a lot of equipment that can do some of the stuff that we do. So
hmm.
we have some, cutting equipment that's fairly old, and it's hard to find people that can maintain it, not necessarily operate it, but you've got to be able to do some retrofitting and things like that in the worst case scenario sometimes, right? So, and
Right.
that's gonna be that way in any kind of market, not just oil and gas. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I,
So,
I I remember I was up in the Pacific Northwest one time and at an aluminum plant, and the, there was a guy who said, I'm the only guy who knows how to run this machine
right.
within like 600 miles of here,
Yeah.
and
So,
nobody else could do it. I hope I don't get hit by a bus or something. This place is going to be in big trouble,
right.
type
And
of
that's
deal.
one of the other benefits of L2L is like the knowledge that any of us have, it gets passed right into that thing. So it's always there moving forward. So,
Yeah, right. You can capture all that stuff as well.
mhm.
So. And tell me a little bit about you. You mentioned TPM, so tell me a little bit about your TPM program. How are you doing on that? How's it? Or
It's good. Yeah. That's one of the things that we've, originally tried to involve the operators with as much as possible. There's kind of been a push away from that a little bit. The operators have backed off a lot on a lot of things, but we want to make sure that we keep them at their comfort level as well. So,
yeah,
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 it's driven quite a bit of improvement for sure. The hardest part of it was trying to get it justified for, machine upgrades and things like that with the finance teams. It's soft costs, or it's missed opportunity costs, and there's a
yeah,
bunch of stuff that
yeah,
rolls in
yeah.
that way.
Yeah, that's what I found when we were doing and when I was doing TPM a while ago is that anytime you went to go calculate what you were trying to save, it was always cost avoidance is
It
what you were
was.
trying to.
Yeah.
You're like, I believe that what we just did eliminated 6 months from now, and that downtime event would have been 4 hours, and so you're trying
Right.
to justify it to people that are
Yeah.
looking at hard dollars. You're trying to, like you said, soft dollars in there as well.
Right. Right. So, and I don't know. Honestly, I think that like when I started that TPM process, I kind of looked at it wrong. It should have been more of a Kaizen thing. It should have been a
Mm,
way to bridge the maintenance to operator gap.
hmm.
So, and that's really what happened with it after the fact, right? I realized that into that process a few years later on down the road that, hey, the operators actually really appreciated everything that we did because we made
Hmm.
their life easier, right?
Hmm.
At the end of the day, they don't have to fight the downtime. They don't have to deal with the pressure gauge that's got the wonky readout on it or anything like that. There's a lot of stuff that came out of that that's just Kaizen level improvement that really helped out the people that are doing the job every day.
Yeah, you will never hear an operator say, I had a great day today. That machine was down, up and down all day long.
For
And I
sure,
loved it.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, they want to come in and they want to break records. They want that machine to
Yeah.
run like it's supposed to run and just
Hmm.
let me do my job, right?
Right.
You're never going to hear anybody say. And the same with maintenance. You're never going to hear maintenance come in and say, "I had a great day. I fire fought machines that were down all day long." It's just
Right.
it's not what people want to do.
No, yeah. I
They
mean,
want to be successful.
they want to see their plan at the beginning of the day and do their PMs,
Do
do a
that.
couple of
Yep.
dispatches, and yep.
Yep. That's exactly right. Let's talk a little more about downtime. How have you guys done in capturing minor stops and stuff like that from the operators? Are you into that yet? I mean, there's got to be jams and stops and all that stuff. Are you capturing those small things?
Yeah, not as much as I would like. There's not a lot of the operators are still a little timid with L2L.
Mm,
The dispatch category is different than how we've historically done any of our maintenance
mm,
before. They
mm-hmm.
got to pick a priority level, but they don't really realize how the dispatches are impacting some of the metrics that come out of it.
Gotcha.
We're using that as a teaching opportunity constantly, right? And we've actually created a generic dispatch type. So if you're unsure, just make it generic. When we see
Gotcha.
generic pop up, we're going to go do a little investigation, do some training, and then make sure it gets
Mm.
categorized properly, and then show everybody how it influences their metrics. So moving forward, they know which categories to pick for which kind of little minor stop
Yeah,
or
very
anything like
cool.
that. So
Very
yeah.
cool. Yeah. Well, man, we're right at about coming up on that 30-minute mark. I really appreciate your time, and I know it's hectic for a maintenance manager to leave the factory floor
Right, right.
and to be able to go from there. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just tell me a little bit more about you guys and where do you think you're going to go from here? I mean, what's your plan?
The big thing that I'm pushing for with this is that operational availability, right? Not
Hmm.
necessarily an uptime or a downtime metric, but how much is it actually available for you?
Right.
You have to have production to do that, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
can put
Yeah.
shifts into there, but it's kind of, an arbitrary number, just what shift is working. So,
Yeah.
and then the other part of this with L2L is trying to get everybody in the different departments to have it up in their area all the time, right? They can see that and on system. I push dashboards all the time. That's the part of the software that I think that I enjoyed the most is just having that visibility right off the bat. So with that, like I spend time with all of the operators and supervisors making, custom filters for them, custom home pages for them in that. So it's more customized to them. Continuing forward with that, like I would absolutely love to see in their areas that they actually use L2L in their start meetings just
Mm,
as another tool so that they're all on the same page, we're on the
mm.
same page with them. It's better communication now than it was before, but it could get even better with them adopting it more. And I think that the longer that everybody sits with it and sees it and then sees the benefit of it, everybody's going to start relying on it very, very
Yeah, the
heavily.
single source of truth, right?
For
Everybody
sure.
sees it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we had a case maybe 6 months ago, something like that, where I actually had a director come and tell me, hey, I've got a complaint out of a department that we've had a machine in that department that's been down for over a year. I'm like, that is absolutely news to me. So, like, let's dig into what I have and digging through our old systems. Like, I can account for 3 downtime events that were less than a week each
Hmm.
for that. Like, so if it's down, it's not being reported or anything like that.
Right.
Having everybody look at this as like, okay, so as soon as I click the dispatch button, it starts that counter for me.
Yeah.
There's no ad hoc, he said, she said, there's no subjectivity in when something actually went down or when something came up, when something's being worked on, when it's being planned, anything like that. And giving everybody the ability to see all of that at their fingertips has been absolutely awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. We were talking a little bit yesterday, and maybe here for my kind of my last question here is that we were talking about implementation and stuff like that, and talk about give me your insight. Maybe you could give me kind of that 23-year wisdom insight of what's difficult or what's the challenges that you face as a maintenance manager? What were the challenges that you faced and overcame when it came to putting in new technology like L2L? I got a lot of people that I talk to every single day that are so apprehensive about making a technological change because they're worried that it's going to fail. Give us a little wisdom there on that side.
Make it easy, as
Mm,
easy as possible, right? So that's one of the big things that was an eye opener. When we went from our previous system to L2L, we did like a soft go live where we took a little group of people that were the users for the other system the most, and we gave them, 15 minutes worth of training. It was just a real quick, general implementation. Here's the URL, here's how to log in, here's how to make a dispatch, and here's kind of the hierarchy of the system, which in fact was completely different than the hierarchy in the other system. The
mm,
only thing that carried through was just the numbering for the machines. And from that day forward, nobody used any of the previous systems at all. It was like they just
mm,
abandoned them completely.
mm,
So, I mean, that's got to be an eye opener right there, that they're hard enough to use that the folks that have been using them for 10, 15 years now just abandon it in a heartbeat. So going through an implementation, it's going to take time, right? So don't go into it expecting instantaneous results, but you're going to have to look at that bigger picture. This is a year to get everybody on board kind of thing. And once you've got everybody on board, it's going to be another year or two before everybody really sees the benefit of stuff like that. So, let people kind of find their own benefit in it and just
mm,
educate, right?
mm,
And
mhm,
try to communicate with everybody, bring everybody
mhm.
together as often as you need to try to push it, and then support from the top. That was actually the way that I ended up getting L2S. I took a director to a sister company that was already on L2L and had, an end user, had a customer of L2L explain, hey, this is the improvement that we have seen in using this software suite as opposed to anything else out there. And just the way that the continuous improvement mindset works through all of that, like it's a no-brainer once you get into it and see other people's success and how it rolls together. So challenges doing all of that, obviously, like it all comes down to a cost benefit analysis at the end of the day for the finance folks, and that's really hard to get going on it. But eliminating downtime at the end of the day, operational availability up, or OEE, however you want to word it, that's the thing that really drives business. So if there's a tool like this that is going to give you improvement in it, there's got to be some way to justify it for people. So
I would say in business, there's only two ways to make money. Either you make more product and sell it, or cut costs.
Right.
Other than that, there's no other way to make money.
For sure, right?
Unless you're printing it. I guess if you're printing it, I guess that's
right.
the way to do it.
Yeah. So, But no, from what I've seen with L2L, like it is the tool that's going to say, hey, by the time I put, XYZ part into it and I had 10 technicians working on it 16 times throughout the entire, 2-3 years that we've been fighting this back and forth, at the end of the day, that equated to 2 new machines. So like we could very definitely see that moving forward where previously we couldn't. So
very good, man.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Joel, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. You're more than gracious with your time and hopping on here with me. And we love hearing from our clients, love hearing what's going on out on the shop floor and how your folks are reacting to that. So appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining the Manufacturing Stream podcast. Again, I'm Eric Whitley, Director of Manufacturing Solutions at L2L, along with my guest, Joel Cooke. Thanks, Joel, and we'll see you next time.